always.
For
me, it's always a good idea.
So the Mishnah was on Tetamad Bet, and talked about things that you shouldn't do before Mincha. Right. And I told you it's going to be the lead-in to things that you shouldn't do before Shabbos. Right. That's really where this is going to go.
Yes, yeah.
So one of those was you shouldn't go to the barber, you shouldn't go to the merchatz, you shouldn't go to the burski, the tannery, you shouldn't sit down to eat. It's a big meal, a small meal, which mincha we're talking about, and among the list was you shouldn't go to a din. You shouldn't start a judgment. Start a judgment.
Right.
And if it's a time, if it's right before mincha, you shouldn't open up a judgment until afterwards. And if you started it, then you ain't mafsikin. So the Gemara got into a whole discussion about what exactly is the beginning of judgment, beginning of a din Torah.
Right.
And to take you back to the end of the short lines, on the end of the short lines of Mar Gemara, Me'em Masayat Chaladin. Right, everybody see that?
Yeah.
So Rav Yirmiyav, Rav Yonah, Charma, Mishiyat, Yetatva, Dayanim. One says when the Dayanim put their talesim, their hoods on, and Charma, Mishiyat, Yiftechu, Baalei Din, when the litigants begin presenting their cases. And the Gemara says, "V'lo pligi," the two versions. What is the beginning of the judgment? One is the Beit Din session when the Dayanim hood themselves over, and the other is when the litigants start. Is had the askil v'asib b'dinei, had lo askil v'asib b'dinei. It depends if they had started judgment already. It's one case after another, right? So the judges are already hooded up. The first case of the day, the judges walk in and hood themselves up, and that would be the beginning. The second case of the day, they're already hooded. The hoods, by the way, I said this last time, the Rishonim say it's one of two reasons. One is that there's a sense of yira, fear of God, by covering your head, right? And second of all, it's also cuts outside distractions.
Like a talus.
Like a talus, correct. It looks like a talus, but looks like a talus that they're putting on their talesim to cover their heads. But then the sense of a talus is it's also covering your head. You're creating a separate space. You're creating a unique space for yourself. You're covering your head, which is always seen as a sign of respect, correct? By the way, if you go to the Gemara, it looks like they cover their heads like for tefillah and other things. It's not so clear that everybody covered their heads when they walked around the street. Don't tell anybody.
I wouldn't think they would. Oh, you mean just
cover head mean where?
Yeah, right. We don't find.
No, I don't think it's that.
That appears correct. That appears to be a much later kind of concept.
The concept of keepers later, like.
Yeah.
Yes.
When later?
Men walk around with their bare heads.
Yeah.
Like when later, more or less.
Probably, I don't know. Probably time they're going, and maybe time of the Middle Ages.
I don't know.
Okay, but I'm saying, but the idea of covering your head is really a sense of fear of Hakadosh Baruch Hu, right? So. Imagine if you were tefillin, you'd have your head covered too. So it's not clear when they would not have their head covered.
They
But
talk about the Kohen, they describe the Kohen's garments in detail.
right,
Yes.
Is there anything about a head?
yes, there are two headgears.
Yeah.
There's a mitznefes. No, there's a mitznefes, which is there's two. There are two types of head coverings. One is called the mitznefes for the Kohen Gadol, and the other is called I forgot.
It's another word.
Yeah, there's a mitre, and then there's also something that looks more like a turban of some sort, right?
Mostly, yeah.
But that's kind of the normal Kohanim.
The normal Kohanim had what looked more like the mitre that you see on the bishops. So
You see that.
Yeah.
so they did have they clearly did have their head coverings. They're in the base of Mikdash. That's the place where you really have yira. You really have morah, fear of Hashem, awe, and so forth.
I mean, it's interesting how, let's say, the Christians decided to take off your hat was a more sign of respect, right? So,
Yeah, I suppose so.
no, clearly that's what they do.
Right, or at least in Western society, correct?
Yeah.
Right. Yes, you used to have to take off your head in public federal buildings. I remember.
Right.
So,
So someone told me, he lived in Germany, and the minute they would go to see the doctor, they just told me this week, and the father would take off his kippah and he went to see the doctor because it was respect.
yes, well,
A Goyish doctor, maybe.
yes.
Absolutely.
In Germany, we know. First of all,
Someone told me this.
in Germany,
No, this is before.
I hear you.
No, in Germany we know this. In the 19th century, in the 20th century, that as a rule, there are pictures of some very religious individuals with their hairs with bare heads. This was not that unusual.
In Germany.
Yes, in Germany, specifically in Germany.
Yeah, who
So,
told me this? I can't
okay,
remember now.
not in shul.
No,
Formal
but
portraits,
the
those kind of
doctor-
things, right? So, at any rate, back. I don't want to get off the topic. So, but clearly, if the judge is judging a case, and here's the important part: the judge who's judging a Jewish case is seen as an extension of the Almighty, right? The Almighty can't really send down fire and brimstone and lightning to invoke His din. He creates a system here of courts, which and judges are called Elohim in the Bible. Not just means gods, but means right leaders in place of God. So therefore, it makes sense that they are going to A, sit in the fear of God, and B, they need to focus very clearly on what it is. So those are the two types. So it's a discussion. So the issue is when you start the day, you hood up, and the next case that comes in, you would just simply wait for the dayan to begin. So you should, once you started that, you don't need to stop, even if it's right before mincha. That's what it means. Now we go into a bunch of cases about rabbis and so forth, which is going to take us into a little bit of an agadic discussion about the importance of judges and about times of day and when people ate, and you'll see how it goes. So we are now Rav Ami Vravasi. It's the second long line. Okay, everybody with me? Yud Amud Aleph. Okay, Rav Ami Vravasi Havayasi V'Garsi Beinei Amudei. This is the last thing we did before Pesach. They would sit between the pillars of the base medrash. V'chol shaita v'shaita have a tapche ayibra dedashin. Every hour, means periodically, they'd knock on the door, on the entranceway, the entrance door. V'amen, they'd say, I'ika di'is beidina leil v'leise. If anyone's got any judgments to be heard, let them come in now. They banged on the door. May have been maybe to an outer chamber, or maybe that's the only thing you could bang on. These were stone walls. You wouldn't really resonate until you banged on some kind of wooden door. So they were studying, and yet they understood the importance of being available for judgments as well. Okay, there underscores the importance of judges. Rav has really nothing to do with what we're talking about starting judgment, but just you see the importance of judges or scholars being available to judge cases. So they sat in a place that was secluded between the pillars; they couldn't be seen. Periodically, they'd come out to see if anyone had a case to be heard, and they'd break the learning and go back to the case, and then go back to learning. Okay, Rav Chisda, Rav Rabba bar Rav Huna, two other scholars, Havayasri b'dinei kula yoma. They were sitting in judgment. They were called to be judges the entire day. And Rav Chisda and Rabba bar Rav Huna are some of the greatest Amoran that we know, who are not known for their judgments. They're known for what they say in the Gemara. So you see, they would normally sit in the base medrash, and they'd be, going back and forth in Shach Levatari discussing kinds of things. So here they are. They're stuck in the base medrash. They're stuck in the courthouse all day. And they couldn't really study Torah. They were dealing with mundane cases, or maybe seemed to be mundane cases. Kachalish libayhu. They felt very bad. They were sad. It means their hearts were weak. It means they just didn't feel fulfilled. So why? Because they sat an entire day to deal with cases. And what happened? They didn't learn. Right now, you're going to say, well, get to judging a case is learning. It's not really learning, it's application. But dealing in the depths of the thought processes of developing Torah and arguing about Torah and engaging in Torah is not the same as having to deal with, two women coming in and say, whose chicken is this? My chicken? Is this your chicken? Is it chicken kosher? Chicken treif? Do I owe you $100? Do you owe me $100? These are kinds of things that needed to be done for society, but may have been fairly reasonable and not necessarily intellectually enthralling. So there they are, and they're feeling bad. So Tanalahu Rab Chia bar Rav Difti. So Rab Chia bar Rav Difti came and quoted them the following brisa, and it goes as follows. This is taken from the beginning of Yisro, and you recall the first stitch in Parshas Yisro is where Moshe, they've come out of Mitzrayim, which is the end of, and that takes us Parshas Bo. B'Shalach, they cross the sea. They go on, and comes to Yisro. Yisro opens up that Yisro finally comes and brings Moshe's wife and children to the camp of Bnei Yisrael. Vayishma Yisro. He heard about Kriyas Yamsuf. He heard about the Makos. He came to be a part of them. And what does he see? Moshe is busy judging the people from day to night. And what does Yisro say? What are you doing? You'll never get out of this. And you're going to therefore build for yourself a system of courts and judges. So you have a higher courts, lower courts, and so forth. So Vayamor Amal Moshe Ben Aboka ad Arev. So the simple pshat is people stood for Moshe. Moshe would judge them from morning to evening. And Moshe was under the same kind of pressure, or the same kind of like Rav Chisda and Rabbi Rav Huna. So says Rav Chia bar Rav Difta. No, that's not really what it means. You would think that Moshe, the great Moshe, the lawgiver, the Torah scholar, the one who's responsible to ensure that the Torah is passed to the Jewish people, he's stuck dealing with chickens and arguments and people pulling out the other ones here, and that's what Moshe is doing all day. You would think Moshe could do that? And a simple pshat, of course, is yes, we do.
Exactly.
That's what it looks like. But the reality is, if he did this every day, if not for the fact that Yisro would have shown up, That's what Moshe looks like. This is what Moshe would have done for 40 days, 40 years. What would have happened to the Torah? How could Moshe lead if he gets stuck with all this kind of minutia and simple stuff? So
After the court's closed, that's
well, if you know the Rambam,
I was gonna
the
say.
Rambam writes how busy he is.
Yeah.
He has to be at the Sultan in the morning. He deals with the Sultan all day. He comes home at the end of a long
I
day,
was
keeping
thinking
this guy
that.
happy.
Yeah.
He writes he's got a whole slew of patients waiting to
Waiting
see
in
him.
the waiting room.
Private clients.
Right.
And finally, he's tired and he's plotting. Finally, late at night, he finishes with his clients, his patients, and then he sits down and starts learning.
Right.
But look what he produced. So at any rate,
Moshe Rabbeinu is certainly going to.
but Moshe Rabbeinu, the question really is that there's so much that Moshe is going to teach the Jewish people. Between Yisro, between the end of V'zos HaBracha, all these laws Moshe is going to teach. So what did Moshe think how's he going to get out of this? How's he going to progress? How's he going to teach? Right? So the Rambam was reformulating and rewriting and organizing, but Moshe was really presenting the stuff from the beginning. So v'chitayla adatcha shemoshe yoshev v'dan kol hayom kulo. Do you think that Moshe is going to sit all day, the whole day, dealing with cases? Torah, so motai nasis. When will his Torah be done? When will Moshe have time to study, learn the Torah from Hashem, and teach it over? Ella, the whole thing of Boker to Erev doesn't mean that Moshe was really teaching from the whole day from morning to evening, judging from morning to evening. Elo malacha, kol dayan shedan din emes lamito, afilu sho achas mala lavakasav kilo nasa shutav lakadosh baruch hu. Means that if you were a judge and you judged one case, and the case was done properly, lamito. In other words, you knew, and how do you know that a case is judged correctly?
You don't know, but let's say.
So, in other words, it's got to be rock solid. You are so convinced. Not that you think this is the best decision under the circumstances. It all clicks together. You know, it's like you watch these mystery shows, and at the end you find out the person who was the confidant really was the killer, and then they recreate the crime. You say, the judge got it right, or the detective got it right. So whoever, a judge who judges the din correctly, afilu shoachas, even just for an hour, like one case, part of a day, a small part of a day, ma'ala lavakasav kilanas shutav lakadosh baruch hu. You are a partner to the Almighty, b'maaseh brachos, in the creation of the world. The same way that God created the world, so you, by judging one case properly, correctly, exactly, and knowing it's right, or coming up with the correct answer, you are equivalent, or you are a partner in the creation of the world of the Almighty. Why? So it's one of these like kind of far-fetched Agadic drashes, ksiv hacha, because it says for Moshe, vayamod ha'amal Moshe min haboker ad ha'arev, that therefore, they stood for Moshe from morning to evening, and ksiv hasam, and it says in the beginning of Brachos, what does it say? Vayer vayvoka yom echad. So they are the people from morning to evening. Right. Creation is about morning to evening. So therefore, it says
the morning.
Evening to morning, but you have Erev and Boker in both cases.
Yeah.
So therefore, a person who is involved in judging is if he is creating the story, creating the world.
Right.
So in other words, the creation of the world talks about morning and evening. The people coming to Moshe for judgment are morning and evening, or morning to evening. Therefore, the two are equated in this Agadic reference. Sure. And therefore, it doesn't really mean that Moshe was sitting every day, but what Moshe did was as important as if he were creating the world as God did from morning, Vayboker, Vayer, Vayboker, evening and morning. Now,
if the partnership is different than standing there all day and doing the same thing. You can
correct.
be a partner in all kinds of ways.
Right. So the question, what this means, like exactly morning. So what does that mean? Therefore, is so. Well, let's go back into the story.
What is he? Yeah.
What Rav Acha bar Difti, Rav Chir bar Difti is telling this over to who? To Rav Chisda and Rabbah,
Right.
who are frustrated because they're dealing with judgment a whole day.
Right.
So what's learnment from this?
I know, at first it
So-
sounds like he's trying to teach them that either Moshe did or didn't stay. That's the point.
Right.
That's not
So
clear.
there are two things. There are two things the Mefarshim suggest. They're both at loggerheads. One thing they suggest is so that Rav who is it again? Rav Difti is telling them, first of all, don't feel so bad that you're stuck judging all day.
Right.
You see, judging is really worth so much more. Okay, so it's true that Moshe didn't judge all day, but you who judge all day and you're frustrated that you couldn't learn Torah in the base medrash, but you are creating the world. Look, you're the partners with the Almighty. You are on the top of His pinnacle. That's one way to say that's what the reason he told the story. The second is that they learned from this that the next day they shouldn't sit a whole day. In other words, what is he telling them? He's telling them that you see that if you judge something for 1 hour, Moshe, did you think Moshe really sat a whole day? Moshe judged part of the day, and he was shutaf to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You too, Rav Chia, who is again, Rav Chisda and Rav Huna, you guys sat a whole day and you judged, and therefore you were frustrated. You should be frustrated. You don't have to judge a whole day. Even if you judge a little bit, and you leave some of the other judging to someone else, you are still shutaf to HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Why did they judge all day anyway?
Because they had a backlog of cases.
Exactly, so it's nothing to do with, they wanted to do it.
Well,
that was
So, you know, the key, there are 3 key rules in management of how to be a successful manager. Delegate. Actually, it's document and 2 things. It's document and delegate. Those are the 2, right? So if you can delegate, so they could have delegated, it looks like. So in other words, that's the key. Well, obviously that's exactly what the purpose is. You could have, the same way Moshe could have delegated, and that's actually what happens with Moshe. When Yisro comes, he says, Sfadlet says do this, and he does. So it doesn't mean that Moshe is any less of a person. It means Moshe went down, he didn't judge all day, he got others to do it. But he still had the same great Moshe of being a partner with the Almighty because he judged for part of the day, which he does. He definitely dealt with cases, difficult cases that the lower courts couldn't do. So in other words, you could learn the nimshal either one or 2 ways. One way is you should keep judging, because that's also important. The second thing is don't judge as much, find someone else to do it, because even if you deal with part of a day, you don't have to knock yourself out. You're still, for part of a day, you're still shutaf HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
And even though, again, from a practical point of view, that's why they should feel better.
Great.
Even though Yisro says to Moshe, you'll get worn out, the other part is, the first word is vayamod.
Right.
He says, you have the Jewish people have to stand there all day.
Great.
Right? That's not exactly a terrific thing for the people either, right?
So it's not good for them, not good for you. Okay. So, right, and by the way, this is like, there's a whole tension here, which is more important, judgment or learning Torah. So, right, Jimmy, it's going back and forth. So, you need both.
Why ask the question? I mean, like, everything's important.
Because we talk, because we talk, I'll tell you what, because we talked about not sitting down to a judgment when it's close to mincha, so you see there's a priority, and on the other hand, if you sat to a judgment, and you open the judgment, you don't have to break for mincha, but as long as you can finish the case, and you'll get to mincha later on. So you see there is a sense of priority, one, a concern for things that you may miss, and second of all, a priority, once you start a judgment, you should try to finish it up. So as with life, there are all kinds of pulls and tugs on us,
Right.
and we have to try to do what we can do. So we're getting a little bit off of the halacha,
Yeah.
and we're entering into the agadic part
Right.
of this. Okay,
Yeah.
so
Gotta balance,
it's
gotta balance.
semi-halachic, if you will, because it's giving some direction to judges that they don't have to sit a whole day, or if they do sit a whole day, it's still important. Now the next question of the Gemara is: so we just learned. I mean, the halachic piece of this is that you don't have to judge a whole day. So it means that judges can keep hours, right? So judges at a certain point says enough. The court's finished,
Absolutely.
right? Come back the next day. Court is adjourned.
Absolutely.
If you ever been in court, you know what happens. Just when you think you're finished, right? So that's why they go to him. Admasa yoshim bedin. Until when the courts sit in session? How long do they have to go the entire day, during the entire day? When does a court need to start? They start in the morning. Do they keep going until it's a marathon? Like these 2 guys, Rav Chisda and Rav Huna, were very frustrated that they couldn't break. They couldn't learn. They couldn't do anything. So Amrav Sheshes Adzman Suda. Until the time for the meal. Now, we really haven't defined when the meal is.
Yeah.
We're taking one thing and defining it something we don't know. But ostensibly, you would assume it's the major meal, right?
Absolutely. Well,
Now,
Suda is
a
not
Suda,
just
which,
eating,
correct.
yeah.
So we're used to a society that has 3 meals. Breakfast, lunch, and supper, right? Not every society had that kind of concept. They really had 2 meals. And in fact, the idea of a Suda Shlishit on Shabbos stands out as unusual because you're making 3 meals the very same day, right? So,
You have to do 2 meals.
Yontiv, you have 2 meals, right?
Yeah.
Correct. Let's say, you and I would have it after Yontiv is out, right? There's a sense of Malav Malka on Shabbos too. I'm saying,
Right, but halach is,
Right.
Yontiv is 2 days.
but even in our 3-meal system of Shabbos, the first meal is the night before. It's not 3 meals and breakfast.
right.
Breakfast
Absolutely.
is
24
the
hours.
Kiddush Club is not the first meal. The first meal is Friday night,
Friday
Shabbos,
lunch, and then-
right?
and
But what we
shoshes.
do is we move up to Suda Shlishi to make it before sunset. That's the hard part in the wintertime, for example. Okay, so the hard part in the summertime is how late Shabbos ends. Okay, but the bottom line is most societies probably had 2 meals. They probably had a midday meal and a meal at the end of the day. Probably the midday meal was probably the major meal, as probably as it is, as you know, probably in many places and so on and so forth. So the psuda that we're talking about ostensibly is probably the midday meal. Okay, but we'll see exactly when the main meal was. That's going to come down about a dozen lines. So Amar Rav Chama, Mikra, what pasuk could this be based upon? That you see that people, when it comes to eating, there's an importance in having a set time to eat, and everything stops, so to speak. So the chsiv a pasuk in Koheles. Eilecha Eretz, woe to you land, Shemalkech Nar, that your king is a child or youngster, V'sorayach baboker yochelu, and your officers eat in the morning. In other words, woe to the way the affairs of state of this kingdom, that you got a kid at the helm who has no experience, and people and they're not running the country. They're having martinis in the morning. Ashrecha Eretz, blessed is the land, or happy is the land, Shemalkech ben Chorin, that your king is a free person. Okay, V'sorayach ba'et yochelu, that your officers will eat in the proper time. B'gvura v'lo b'shti, they'll eat with strength and not without just drinking, not just like a drunken feast. Now, so this really seems to deal more with kings. The Rishonim
And officers.
Right? So Rashi says that that if it would just be kings, it wouldn't have anything to do with anything here. We're dealing with judges.
exactly.
So Rashi says actually that kings is another reference here for judges. Who was the ultimate judge in every country? The king.
Absolutely.
The king made laws. The king enforced laws. The king was the ultimate law. You could always appeal to the king. So Rashi quotes a pasuk from Mishlei. It says, "Melech b'mishpat yamid eretz." I think it's in our liturgy on Rosh Hashanah, that the king is going to, with judgment, will set up the land. So, all right. And unfortunately, what happens in a land where you have a dictator or a king who is unjust, it creates anarchy, creates dissension, creates revolt. Okay. So at any rate, you see from this. Then when it talks about your king, and your king being, and the sarayach, the officers of this king, means the whole judicial system, is about eating in the morning and about not being mature, that's terrible. When you have a king who really can be responsible, and the office, and he sets a rule that the officers will eat in their proper time, and it's a meal, it's not a shti, it's not simply a drunken feast, so that's proper. And in fact, then the Gemara adds to this, just a little twist on it. It's not just about dayanim, not just judges, not kings, but the gvura that we're talking about is about begvura shel Torah, that they're going to eat and they will be strong in Torah, and they're not going to drink wine to get drunk. So you see, at any rate, this kind of drash, which is not really a proof, of course, that there's a concept that the judge does not have to be the entire day, which really seems to support the interpretation before, what was the nimshal that was being said to Rav Chisda and Rabbi Barafuna. Now, it's good that you sat a whole day because you'll be a great shutaf, a great partner to Hashem, but you can be a partner by breaking at a certain point too. You don't have to judge with every case. You can delegate someone else. So you see that there's a limit when judges have to work. So that brings us to the time when people eat. Because if you don't define when the eating is, right, then you don't know what this statement means, that court should be in session until the time for the meal. So when did people eat? So different professions had different times that people would actually eat. Okay? But you're going to see in a moment that most people, it's going to be the middle of the day. All right? So let's go and see this piece now. So Tana Rabbana, we have a brisa, which gives us the times when people eat. Shah Rishona. Now, when the first hour, of course, means sunrise. So that means we'll go 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So the first hour is going to be 6 o'clock. The 6th hour is going to be 12 noon.
Lunchtime.
Right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just we're keeping track of this. So Shah Rishona, the first hour of the day, right when the sun comes up, is Machal Ludim, is the time that the Ludim people eat. Now, who are these Ludim people? Those are people not living in Lud. Who are these Luddites, right? I don't-
Okay, I thought it was a word.
Blood, I guess.
Well, that's what we think. Rashi says, no, these was a very primitive kind of a cannibalistic tribe somewhere. Doesn't tell us where. He says, Uma Shekorim, actually he gives the name here. Uma Shekorim Kanalish. Okay, it's a country, it's called Kanalish, Kanlinash. Okay, I don't know where this place is, but what's really important is v'ochlei adam heim. They're cannibals. They eat other people. V'hein ravatamnim, and they're very ravenous.
So why they bring them?
These were the only people who ate at the first hour of the day. These are the exceptions.
So what about us?
What about
Don't eat
you?
it, better not.
No, we get up, we have a coffee.
That's
You
not
better wait
a
more
meal.
than an hour.
That's the
What a
answer.
minion.
So that's exactly it. You have a coffee. You're not sitting down to a 6-course meal.
Oh, they mean a full meal.
They mean a real meal.
They mean eating other people, that's what.
No, I know.
They
That's a
don't-
fleshig meal. That's a fleshig meal.
They had a fleshig meal. That's exactly the point. They couldn't even wait an hour. These people were so bad. They were so horrible that they couldn't even wait an hour to have a meat meal.
But I mean,
And it was
we go to davening, but most people get up and they have
even
coffee.
Yeah.
even
Donuts,
people who have
whatever.
breakfast in our society. Breakfast is not really a major meal.
Indeed,
Oh,
indeed.
so you're saying it's not a
Matter
major
of fact,
meal?
they claim
Okay,
it's
fair.
So
very
you'll
healthy
see in a
meal.
moment
Okay,
that you'll
fine,
see in a
fine.
moment. This is what we call breakfast is going to be called ta'im midi b'tzafra.
Okay,
People
we'll
eat
get
a
there.
little bit. Ta'im, they taste. Midi, something in the morning. That's what you do.
Okay.
Before davening, after davening, not davening.
In Israel,
Right.
it's an essay, right? No, yeah, but I'm
Right.
saying normally in Israel, like especially if you're working
Right.
outside, it's Shabbat essay. That's where you sit at 10 o'clock in the morning. Till then, you work.
So that's like your coffee break.
But it's more than just coffee. Though.
Okay.
You know.
So at any
Like
rate,
hot essay.
so
Okay.
it starts out. That's what's of course unusual. That it's going to include these kind of people who are not members of our tribe.
No.
Whatever tribe they were from, they're not members of the Jewish community. But they're simply mentioned as the only people who. And you got to remember, this means first hour means it's actually sunrise.
Yes.
Okay. Now, Shniya, the second hour, that's 7 o'clock. The sun's been up for an hour already. Machal listim. This is the time when Ganavim would eat. Okay. So the Ganavim were up a whole night. These were petty thieves. They were break and enters. While people were sleeping and everything was locked up, they do their quiet thievery. When the sun rose, they got back. Before the sun came up, they went back to their houses. They got a little bit of a nap, right? Because they needed to appear that they were coming out of their house with everybody else. But of course, they couldn't really sleep all night because they were busy doing their cat burglary. So they come back, they sleep an hour, and they get up after an hour. And guess what? They've been up. They've been running around all night. They're hungry. So the listim, the robbers, they would eat at the second hour. So that was a good sign that if you saw. I think the Gemara doesn't here say, but someone else says if you see someone coming in a second hour and he's asking for a meal, he's probably a ganav. Okay, that's the giveaway sign. Okay, it's like the fingerprints. So
Smart again.
well, the most ganav we're not too smart. Okay, so right. So at any rate, that's the second hour. That's 7 o'clock. Shlishis, the third hour. Machal Yarshim. These are people who are of a lot of largesse. They've inherited a great fortune. They're men of leisure. They don't have anything to worry about. They don't have to go make a living. They don't have to go to a job. They're just really collecting their whatever it is, their investments. They've got this Yerusha. So, and therefore, because of that, they're willing to just be people of leisure and begin to eat when they want to eat. So when will they eat? The third hour. What hour is that? 9 o'clock. Okay? So once again, remember that our society doesn't dovetail with these hours exactly because we have a set time that you get up every month as opposed to the change, right?
I see. 'Cause they would get up in the
right,
morning.
and remember that most people are reporting for work. If you're a worker, you're reporting for work at sunrise.
Absolutely.
Okay, so it's not like you're getting up going to daven. They would daven while they're working in the trees. They would say Kriya Shema while in the trees. And the idea of davening vasikin, when they start Shemona Esrei at sunrise, was real. That's how society functions. Sunrise to sunset. Sunset, you went home.
Absolutely.
You put on your whatever
It's
it was,
dark. What do you
your
mean?
kerosene lantern or whatever, your
didn't have
olive oil lantern, your little light there, and then you went to sleep. So anyway, the third hour is Yorshin. These are all the exceptions to the rule, men of leisure. Revius, the fourth hour, is Machal Polim. These are the hard-working people who have a union that supports them, and therefore they would eat at the fourth hour.
That's what I told you.
That's
That's
Machal
Aruchat
Eser.
Eser.
That's a
That's
Ruchat
Aruchat
Eser.
Eser.
Okay, there's a Ruchat Eser. There we go. Okay.
I
So
said
these
to people who
Polim-
work outside,
right.
this is what you do.
These are these.
Here.
Right. So,
Maybe, I don't know.
right. So these are the Polim. Polim, once again, was a part of society. These were hand laborers, day laborers in many cases. And they would have the break, and they'd eat then because they had actually worked fairly hard. Chamishis machal koladam. Now, we're going to change this in a moment, so don't get too excited.
Yeah.
So the 5th hour, which would be 11 o'clock, is when everybody else eats. Okay? So, right.
Like 11 o'clock.
I don't know what they were doing in the meantime.
Well, it means that this was the middle of the day. Machol Kolodim is not necessarily Polim. These could be the business people. These could be a lot of other people.
Yeah,
Polar people are manual laborers.
Right.
Okay, so you have this list from the 1st hour through and including the 5th hour. So the Gemara just wants to play around with the exact times because it has a different version of when the hours are. So the Gemara says, "Ini, is this really true?" Rav Papa said, and you'll see the hours are different. Revid Zman Sudal Choladam. The 4th hour is when everybody eats, who's not a worker. So how could you say it's the 11th, the 5th hour? Ella, here's really what it is. Revi'it machal koladam. The 4th hour machal eser is people who are not day laborers and manual laborers. Chamishid machal polim. The 5th hour is when the real hard laborers work. I guess they were contracted to work, so they couldn't take a break. Other people could eat earlier. And shishit midday is machal talmidei chachamim. 12. The last people to eat are the scholars. So this is telling us, by the way, that if you were the court, right, this is really coming to give us the answer, because who are the dayanim in the court? Talmidei chachamim. So the courts would be in session till midday, and then they'd break to eat, and there's nothing wrong with that, because not only is it okay, but if you don't, the Gemara tells us next 3 or 4 words, mikan v'elach. After that, if you didn't eat past the 6th hour. Right, let's say you delayed, you were a poel, and for some reason you got busy, you reported late, or whatever it was, that you didn't eat till past the 12 o'clock midday. Mikan vo'ela kizorik even lachamas. It's like you throw a stone into a chamas is like a barrel. Okay, the question what that really means.
It's a noise.
It makes a noise. It's empty. It doesn't have an impact, or it might even be worse. It's going to bang around. Right, so one of the Rishonim says actually there was a real use of this, and that was when you had you wanted to top up a barrel, right? Like putting water in the gas tank.
No.
When
If you want to, we used to make wine. If you want, you have to keep the air out. So you put glass. What's it called? Glass.
Shards.
Beads.
Yeah.
Beads. Marbles.
Marbles.
You put marbles in to fill it up so that there's no air gap.
So why don't you fill it up with wine?
We don't have wine. That's your stuff you don't have. That's what they would do. They put stones in.
Okay, so all right. So at any
guessing.
rate,
In order to
right. So I
get the air out.
read it. I read it. And I
they
thought
say?
it was kind of that's exactly what it says. Like you're throwing a stone in to top it up.
Yeah.
But I didn't
Because-
understand what that meant.
what
No,
does it mean?
if you have wine, you can add wine. But if you're going to add water, you're going to dilute it. You have a jug or something.
Yeah, I
right?
see what you're saying.
And you only have, you're this short from the top.
I got you.
Instead of having, so the top comes on like this, so you have a whole surface area of air. So
Right,
you don't
right.
want a whole surface area of air.
you throw
'Cause
some
it
marbles
gets-
in and then
You throw
at
whatever in, and it takes up the volume and it comes to the top.
So in other words, that's like it's worthless, really, or maybe it's actually. I'm not sure if it's worthless. If it
I
just,
think I don't-
it's in other words, it's not the actual value of the wine. It's just simply something to take up space. So in other words, if you go the whole day and you
There's no
have,
positive effect.
there's no
Well,
positive
let's say
effects,
in
right?
terms
So
of-
what Rashi gives 2 interpretations.
That's what
Rashi says it's either no effect, lo kashiv lo yafeh, and then Rashi says the first interpretation is kashiv lukov. It's even worse. I don't know. It's like having a stone in an empty stomach. I don't know, whatever. But I'm saying the bottom line is, at best it's not good. At worst it's bad. At best it means if you wait too long to eat, it doesn't have the same impact upon the body. Nutritionally, the body's out of kilter. In the worst case scenario, it's worse. It makes the body sick because you fasted, and then you fill the body. The bottom line is that no matter how these are suggested times, or these are probably practical times that the society followed, and the Talmidei Chacham were the last ones, because if they didn't eat by 12, right, then it was going to have some kind of bad effect upon them. They missed the time to eat. Okay. Okay. So now let's come back to our breakfast. So the Gemara recognized that there was sometimes people ate before they went off to work. This is not a modern invention. The modern invention is, by the way, dry cereal. No one invented dry cereal until the 50s or 40s, right? But people would grab something, right?
Yes, bread or whatever you have.
Whatever they have. pastry, bread, vegetables, I don't know, whatever it was, porridge. Okay, so the Gemara says, Amar Abaye, Lo Amaran, these hours, or as if to say, not just the hours, but not eating till after it's 12 o'clock is negative and deleterious and destructive or does nothing, it was only said, El lo time midi batzafra, if you ate nothing in the morning, you fasted until midday. That's wrong if you go into the afternoon without eating. Aval, ta'im midi batzafra, les lan ba. But if you had a small, something in the morning to get going, there's really nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with eating later on beyond that. You've actually fortified yourself. You've greased the system. You've put something into the system for the machinery to work that you can therefore go beyond 12 o'clock to have your main meal. And that's really what our society follows, okay? So at any rate, this is all brought not so much for good hygiene and good eating habits. It's really brought to show us that the Talmidei Chachamim who were judging did not have to sit and judge a whole day, right? They shouldn't start a case if it's close to Mincha. But if they start the case close to Mincha, they can continue. But they really didn't have to, they were entitled to take a break as well. Okay.
How long is the break?
How long is the break? I guess as long as it takes to eat. I don't know. How long does it take to eat? 45 minutes, an hour? What do you?
Just to eat, 10, 15, 20 minutes.
What do they give a lunch break today? What are our rules in our society?
Half an hour, an hour.
Half an hour, right? Okay. You're not allowed to employ employees for a certain amount of time. I think it's 6 hours without giving them time to eat.
So what about the second break?
Which second break?
Second meal.
Well, they're going to go to work after 12 o'clock, after 1 o'clock.
Well, they didn't work after sundown.
So I mean afternoon,
That was the
means
limit?
after 12 noon.
They didn't work. People did not work after sundown. In the society of the ancient world, they worked from sunrise to sundown.
Yeah.
Then and don't look at our society in the northern hemisphere where the days get very short and very long. These are societies that are closer to the equator, so they probably varied from like 6 o'clock, maybe 5:30 to 6:30. They didn't have daylight savings time. So it's like living in Israel, where the late nights are not as late as they are here, and there's a variation, but not as great as there is here. And twilight, of course, is very quick in Israel.
So they work till Mincha time? That's what
Well, they worked to Mincha, they took a break from Mincha, but then they went back to work. No worker worked past sunset. It wasn't possible. There were no street lamps,
There was no lights.
right? Remember the whole idea of Hanukkah, the light. Well, let's go back to when we light Hanukkah. We light Hanukkah when people are coming home from the marketplace, which is right after sunset, right? Who are the last people to leave the marketplace? The wood dealers, the Tardamoy. I think they were. This nation or this group had the franchise on firewood, and that's really the time, the ideal time when they announced the time you should light Hanukkah candles. That was the time. There was the ending of people leaving the marketplace. The last thing they picked up on the way out was firewood. It's like saying when you go shopping, what's the last thing you buy? You buy milk and you buy ice cream, because you buy the milk and ice cream at the beginning, you wander around for half hour, it's going to be melted. So you don't want to schlep around the wood the whole time you were in the marketplace. You picked it up on the way home. I mean, that's just logic. So you went home, you lit your fire, you made your supper, you went to sleep. It's actually a very simple life, except you had all kinds of marauders and pirates and bad people and Romans and Greeks, what I'm saying. But
Other than that, it was
perfect.
okay.
Crusaders too.
Yeah, Crusaders. I mean,
Later.
we're always sorrows. But I'm saying, there was very little to do. There was, on the other hand, of course, let's keep in mind that the revolution that we created for society was having a day of rest. People did not have they didn't have forget a 2-day weekend, didn't have a 1-day weekend in the ancient worlds. Right? Jews invented that, or HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave it to us. That was the gift of Shabbos.
7 days, yeah.
They worked 7 days until there were holidays.
absolutely.
Right? There was no concept of weekends at all.
Yeah.
Right? So you got up, you went to work, you came home, you went to sleep. That was life.
Romans called us a lazy nation.
Yeah, that's
When
correct.
they had a seven,
Correct.
don't work.
Right.
Why?
Right. All right. Anyways, and we have government holidays and statutory holidays, and we have Sundays and blue laws and this, right? Okay, so, all right. Anyway, this is really all about the din and dayanim.
Right.
And as you saw, we got a little bit of far afield, but really, even the Agada was really of some
Yeah.
nature here. Okay.
Sure.
Talk about the second meal? Do we talk about the second meal?
One second, man.
You said there's 2 meals in a day.
I said this. The midday meal is the main meal.
Oh,
So
This is the meal.
Oh,
this is
so
the
there's
meal we're
only
talking
one
about, right?
meal,
One meal. We got
Yeah,
home.
when
They
you get home, you have
got
a
home.
little
They
snack
had
or something, whatever.
right, correct. So,
Okay, thank you.
right. I said what we did is we've elevated the second meal on Shabbos to a significant
Okay.
moment. Okay, let's go a little bit further. And once again, for those who came in late, I have to break early. I have to run down to Lawrence. And tomorrow, next week, we're not going to learn to enable everybody. I've made a decision. I made an executive decision. It's Yom Ha'atzmaut.
The Matzmaut,
The
right?
community celebration is at Shari Shemayim. I want to encourage people to go. I want to encourage me to go. So, and I can't be there and here at the same time. So we're going to, in honor of Yom Ha'atzmaut, well, in memory of those who fell, which is the end of Yom HaZikaron and the beginning of Yom Ha'atzmaut, we're going to enable you to come, or if you're not, we're not going to learn here at any rate, okay? I'll send you a reminder.
Please.
Now, let's just do a little bit. So now when the Gemara is going to change the topic here, and goes to the next thing is about going to the merchatz, going to the bathhouse, right? A person shouldn't go to the bathhouse right before mincha, okay? So this is related to the bathhouse, but it's a little bit far afield. Amrav Adam bar Ahava mispal Adam tfilaso beveis hamerchatz. A person can daven in the bathhouse. Now, what does that mean? It sounds like the wrong place to daven.
Exactly.
Okay? So the answer is the bathhouse, as you're going to see, had multi different rooms. In some rooms, people were more dressed. In some rooms, people were less dressed. Okay, so
So why is this news? I mean,
why is this news?
if you have a place that's properly used.
You'll see, because if you walk in the place where some people are naked and some people are not now dressed, don't necessarily need to stop, or you don't need necessarily take off your tefillin. So let's just go through this. Meisvei. Hanechnas lebeis hamerchatz. The Gemara asks a question. A person goes in the beis hamerchatz, so there are different rooms. Makom shebnei adam omdim levushim, where people stand when they're dressed. Consider this the outer foyer. Yesham mikro tefillah. You can read Torah, you can daven. Vein tzarach lomar shelat shalom. And surely you can even say shalom. Why? Because shalom is the name of Hashem, which is going to be the discussion on Yom and Bet. Shalom is God's name. Okay, and we'll get to it on Yom and Bet. Okay, so it's the one. It's equal to God. There are a lot of other accolades for God, right? Chanun, Rachum, Ne'emon.
Right.
That's a adjective about God. But the word shalom is equivalent to the name of God, Hashem Shalom, and there's a pasuk to support it. So you could actually say Shalom Aleichem even in this room where people are dressed, even though they're going to get undressed. Umaneach tefillin, and you can wear tefillin in this outer room. V'chein tzarach lomar she'ein choletz, and surely you don't have to take off your tefillin. So that's the first room. Next thing, just go a few more minutes. Makom shebnei adam omdim, in the room, the more inner room where people stand omdim arumim ulevushim. Some people are dressed, some people are naked, and some people are dressed. Okay, it's half and half.
Change room.
A change room, right? Yesham shelat shalom, v'ein sham mikro tefillah. You can say shalom, but you can read Torah, and you can daven. V'ein acholitz tefillin, and you don't take off your tefillin, but v'ein maniach. But you don't put them on. Okay?
So if you happen to be davening there and then somebody suddenly gets undressed,
You don't have to take your tefillin off, correct? But you shouldn't put them. You shouldn't start to put them on. The final room is this is the inner room, right? This is not just the change room. This is the entry into the bath. Makom shebnei adam omdim arumim, where people are completely naked. This is the where the steps are into the pool. Ein sham shelat shalom, v'ein tzarich lomar mikra tefillah. You can't say shalom. You can't read Torah. You can't daven. V'cholitz tefillin. And you take your tefillin off. Ein tzarich lomar she'ena manicham. And surely you don't have to put them on. So how come we just said a moment ago that a person can daven in a beis hamerchatz? That's the question. Right, and the answer is going to be obviously
depends where.
Depends where. So kikam ravach ba'ada b'merchatz. No, he actually says b'merchatz she'ein she'bein bo adam. Okay, he says, well, no, it means any place in the merchatz, but there's nobody that's there. In other words, it's a completely empty merchatz. It might be the room where people walk around naked, but guess what? There's nobody there. You're the only guy there. Nobody's hiding. Nobody's around. So then you can all these things apply in different gradations. You surely shouldn't put on tefillin in a room where everybody normally stands naked, even if there's nothing around. But if there's nobody around, then actually that's the place you actually could daven. I got it backwards. If nobody's around at all, you surely could daven. Okay, just do 3 more lines and we'll have to cut it. So Gemara says, "V'amar Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina merchat sham rafa pi shein sham b'nei bo adam." That when we talk about the rules of merchatz, even if people aren't there. and a Beis HaKisei, and you can't daven in a Beis HaKisei, you can't say brachos in a toilet, a lavatory, whatever it was, the dung hills they used. She'amru afa pi she'ein bo tzawa, even if there's no dung and excrement there, you still can't daven there. So what are you telling me that people aren't around? Even if people aren't around, you still can't say it. So Gemara gives another answer. Elaki kamar Rav Ada becharete. When did you say you can daven in a Beis HaMerchatz? When it's a brand new Beis HaMerchatz, never used. Brand new. It's before opening day, before they cut the ribbon. Still.
So it's not even Americans yet.
Yeah, well, it looks like it is, okay?
It's made for it.
Right. So the Gemara says, wait, 1 sec, we're not going to let you get off the hook that quickly. Ravina. The Ravina asked, Hizminu lebeis hakisei mahu. If you decided something is going to be a toilet, okay, what is the law? Yesh zimun or ein zimun? In other words, is this considered already a toilet or not a toilet? You built the toilet, but no one used it yet.
Right.
You designated part of this dump as to be an outdoor toilet.
Right.
No one's used it yet. Is that considered a toilet or not? Nobody's actually broke it in. Okay, so he asked the question. He didn't know the answer. So and lav hu adin lemerchatz. Shouldn't that be the same thing for a merchatz? So if nobody used it, it's still a merchatz. If nobody used the Beis HaKisei, it's clearly Beis HaKisei, so it should be the same thing. So the Gemara says no, you can't compare Beis HaMerchatz to a Beis HaKisei. Lo, dilma shiny Beis HaKisei demois. A toilet, even if nobody used it, is considered disgusting just by virtue of it being called a toilet. So, in other words, it's an outhouse, it's a lavatory, whatever it is. Even if nobody has actually gotten in there yet, it still has a definition. A Beis HaMerchatz is used where people are undressed, but it's not the kind of denigrating thing of a place that's full of excrement. People kept a certain degree of hygiene, right? Even if they were naked in the Beis HaMerchatz. So the bottom line is, if you have a Beis HaMerchatz that was never used, you can daven in there, right? If it was never used. If you have a Beis HaKisei that was never used, you can't daven there. If you have a Beis HaMerchatz that is being used, there are certain gradations in different places that they are.
But still,
Okay.
Right, even if it's used, right?
That's
Right.
like here
right.
today, because
Correct
today
room.
everything goes away, so it's the same thing. In it.
Today might be different because of that, but it still smells.
But even though it was never used, like that's the same as ours. It's used, but it goes away. So if
possibly.
it was never used, it's no good. Then
Right. Okay, we'll stop here. Next week we're off. I'll send you a reminder. The time after that, we're going to pay with next piece of Gemara. Just going to be a short piece of Gemara. Talks about why Hashem's name is Shalom,
Yeah.
and then it goes through the rest of the Mishnah. Okay, you guys got to run. Sorry. Okay, I'm out.
A bathhouse
Thank you.
is a place where it's a clean.
wait a second.
The fact that it happened to be